All right, the Chodesh, Nishanichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. Even though we've already had a month of Adar already, now we're at it again, and so we have to be Marben B'Simcha. We have to add to the joy. It says when the month of Adar enters, we increase our joy, and so we have to increase our joy even more and more. And I mentioned in a recent video that I try to look every day at the Tanya. I don't have to apologize for that. The current Rebbes of Satmar are also Eineklich from Balatanya. Doesn't make me a 770 chassid. And the Tanya that they learned today in the Chitas, it brings something amazing. Oh, what's that up there? Is that an owl? Oh, it's actually a falcon. So anyway, I only remember once seeing an owl in the wild. It was over, I think, near Grahamsville. I saw it, but you don't notice those things. If you're not looking for them, you don't notice them. So there could be Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster all around me. You're not looking at it. There could be UFOs right above my car. I can't see up there. I don't know what's going on. So anyway. Not only that, but now you ever see these night vision goggle UFO videos that you wouldn't even be able to see them even if you were looking up, unless you have the right equipment and stuff. So anyway, let's move aside. It is Adar. So anyway, the Zushtel that I saw between a tweet that I saw this morning and today's Tanya, I found interesting, and that's why I wanted to comment on it. In a simple way, not in any deep Kabbalistic way, just in a very, very simple way. So, I'll start today with the tweet. I mean, not start today, I've already been talking for 2 minutes, the machine here says. So, the tweet, it was a tweet that was answering another tweet. You know how those things work? Like they quote the other tweet. It's the original tweet was a tweet from a Twitter feed that's called State and Religion, I believe it is. I don't remember exactly the whatever it is. And it said that the leading Haredi rabbinical leaders are at odds with the women of the wall. It's Rosh Chodesh again, that time of the month again, when the women of the wall come out. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So anyway, and there's the whole issue that they have every month, Rosh Chodesh. They want to come out and lane on the women's side, and more often than not, the Haredi women who are on the women's side, they're not too happy about it, and the men also. There's always some kind of big, at least people are booing and hissing, and the women of the wall, they answer back. But to this, and the actual tweet says. The tweet quotes, the original tweet quotes an article, and I didn't read the whole article. I don't have time for that nonsense. I have too much other things to do. But I'll sometimes look at a headline. I remember Rabbi Belitsky, Zechron Levracha, he said the Allgemeiner Journal, again, even though Rabbi Belitsky was a Chaim Berliner, I remember I was introduced by him to the Allgemeiner Journal. He asked me to go into the candy store and buy him the Allgemeiner Journal. He gave me whatever it was, the $1.50, $2, whatever it was at the time, to buy the Allgemeiner Journal, and I was introduced. I was like, oh, maybe I should start buying this if I see it in the newsstand. And that was my textbook to learn Yiddish in a certain sense. I remember Mr. Siegel, he should be well. The story, one of Mr. Siegel, who wrote all the books, anti-missionary books, Jerry Siegel, he was our history teacher, and he should be well. He should have a long life, and I think he recently had a birthday, if I'm not mistaken. So he was upset because one of the boys would use a Yiddish word that wasn't so nice, and even though it's technically a descriptive word, he said, to this boy, you're of a Sephardic Persian extraction. He was actually born in Iran, and you shouldn't use that word because it's a Yiddish word, and the fact that you're using it in the English context shows that you're using it in a negative way, and I don't appreciate that. Was basically his take on it. So then he asked this, but if I were to be fluent in Yiddish, I could use it even though I'm of Sephardic extraction. He said yes, in the context of speaking Yiddish. So then I had the newspaper. It's like, this kid was like, Yitzchak, I want to borrow that, so I gave it to him, and then he said, you see, Mr. Siegel, I know Yiddish now I could use that word. And he said, okay, so let me see you read it. And he said, oi, bezoi, ezoi, whatever. And he said, so what does it mean? He said, well, you see here where it says President Clinton? That means President Clinton. Seems like yesterday. That was in the 90s. That was 20 years ago. Seems like yesterday. How was that 20 years ago? Yeah, that was 20 years ago. Excuse me. So anyway, what I was saying is Rabbi Blitzky said that the Allgemeiner Journal is a newspaper you buy just to read the headlines. To actually go and sit down and read the whole article, it's not that easy. Although I remember, I guess it was Yossi Jacobson's wife and their family publishes Allgemeiner Journal, and Yossi Jacobson's wife had a baby at Long Island Jewish Hospital. So I would go with some of my friends on Shabbos, and we would go do Bikur Cholim, because we lived right near the hospital. So I was talking to Yossi Jacobson, and I told him I just read his article. I think it was something, it might have been Parshas Mitzvah or something, an article that he wrote in Yiddish. It was a Dvar Torah. It was a nice Dvar Torah. I can't see. I hope there's nobody there. It's too bright. It was something about I remember it was something about Gilgal Neshamas he was writing, but also there was something else about the Mitzvah. I don't remember which Sedra it was, but whatever it was. That's the memories I have of my teenage years. It was right after he had been married, so the whole chasana, they had pictures in the paper and everything. So anyway, so again, just like Rabbi Blitzky, Zecher Tzadok Livrocha, he would look at the headlines. So even in English, I don't have time to do much more than read headlines most of the time. Sometimes I read the Blaze. I like Glenn Beck very much, and I like his ideas. But anyway, we'll get back to. So I read the headline that said that the rabbi of the Western Wall, I guess Rabinowitz, said, "Don't to the women of the wall. Don't bring your war to the wall." That's what they said. So the women of the wall said in the tweet that they quoted the other tweet, right? It's a whole Kadgadia, like a Rube Goldberg thing, It's except it's not as funny because it's true. But anyway, these or is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. So the women of the wall said, we're not looking to make a war. We're just looking to pray in the way we believe. And I'll be honest with you. Personally, as a pretty much a libertarian person, in a political sense, I'm a little bit more, not really with the means and the goals and everything of the Women of the Wall, but in a certain sense, I support their seeking of freedom. And I don't think the Western Wall should be run by the Israeli government. But that being said, excuse me. So, I believe in total privatization of religion. As it is in America, it should be in Israel. And there is a certain, or at least on the federal level, I do believe that in federalism, there is room for state and local governments to have official religion and so forth. And that was traditional in America until really, even though it stopped being traditional in America a few decades into the country, more or less, but it was still pretty much allowed until the 1940s, really. And that's all because of a Supreme Court case that the KKK brought against New Jersey in an attempt by the KKK to oppress the Catholics. If you really know history. It was around 48 or 49 was the Supreme Court case where the KKK was upset, which was part of the Democrat Party, and still is to this day. We see David Duke says the most important member of Congress is a Democrat. I don't care that she's a Muslim. I don't care that she wears hijab. I don't think she's a real Muslim, as I said yesterday, because a real Muslim wouldn't support a party that supports redefinition of marriage and abortion on demand and all these things that are haram according to Islam. So she's a fake Muslim. She, just because she wears a hijab, it's all for show. There's nothing real to that. There are probably many Muslim women who don't even wear a hijab who are more pious than she is. Anyway, let's put that aside. The thing is, to go back to this with the excuse me. That's what happened was the Supreme Court said, well, I never noticed that house. That's a nice house. Look at that. So the Supreme Court, that was also pretty nice. They found that they do believe that the opinion of that court in the late 40s, which was packed by FDR, so it wasn't a constitutionalist court. It was a progressivist court. It was a Woodrow Wilson FDR ideology, which borders on Marxism, and has ties to Nazism as well in their ideology and fascism. Mussolini himself said FDR is one of us. That's why it took the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor to get FDR into the war, because he didn't care really about Europe. It was just because the Japanese had attacked, which he knew about ahead of time. It was the whole thing. Not that he didn't care about the Allies in Europe, but he didn't. I don't think he really opposed the evil of the Nazis and the fascists because he was in line with a lot of their ideology. I don't mean about killing innocent people necessarily, but certainly putting innocent people in camps. He did that himself. And like we've learned, historically, the Nazis learned their ideology from the Democratic Party. And even though he was a Northern Democrat from New York, and he wasn't as racist as a lot of them, as the Southern Democrats, But still, even the Northern Democrats, there was a tinge of racism. There were stories about, I think it was, I forget who it was exactly who came to FDR and asked him to try to help save the victims of the Holocaust, and he said something. Oh, you people, you're so sentimental. He should rot in hell, FDR. and it's not just a Jewish issue; it's an American issue. The way he handled things. Baruch Hashem, we won the war at the end, and most of that was even after he had died. He was into dragging things on that could have been solved much quicker. But anyway, not that Truman was so great, but he wasn't as bad as a lot of people say. And really, the war was won by Eisenhower, who was a Republican, right? So, he was a general. So anyway, although FDR there were some good things. Now we can keep Shabbos. That's actually more important than a lot of these things. Not more important than saving lives, but which he could have done and didn't do. But it's more important than a lot of other things that we talk about. So that is, nobody's totally evil, nobody's totally good, and I certainly don't think FDR was totally evil. But I don't think he was that good either. Anyway, and I did visit Hyde Park once, just incidentally. Anyway, so like I said, the article, the headline of the article said that the rabbi of the Western Wall, which I guess it's still Rabinowitz, he said to women of the wall, don't bring your war here. And the women of the wall said, we're not waging a war, we just want to pray in the way that we see fit. And my answer to the women of the wall was as follows. The Satmar Rebbe was right. The true Charedim shouldn't go to the Western Wall. It's Chatoy and Mazkar Yom. I've been there. I prayed there many times. I don't know if I could overcome the temptation, if I were to go to visit the Holy Land, to go there again. Maybe yes, maybe no. It's hard to say. I probably would. I know, but I'm a sinner, and I know I'm at fault there. But that being said, what are we talking about here? That being said, like I said, even though I'm a sinner, and I'm a big sinner, but the Satmar Rebbe did go to the wall before, in like 1929 when he visited Eretz Yisrael. He did daven at the Western Wall. There's a picture of him there. It wasn't that he was against the wall, it's that, he was praying against the wall. But it's not that he opposed the idea of praying at the wall, but that now that the Zionists have taken it over and made it into some kind of a symbol of nationalism, which, that was the problem. It was in 29, so I don't know when the Satmar was there, maybe it was 27 he was there, I don't know. It was in 1929 that Rav Kook was trying to make the wall into a nationalist issue, and that's what actually led to the riots in Hebron, that dozens of innocent Jews were killed because of the instigation that Rav Kook made. And all the Rosh Yeshiva of Hebron, told the Zionists who were coming to Hebron, get out of here, you're going to make you're gonna, put Jews in danger. You're gonna make the Arabs hate us. We've been living in peace with these people for centuries, and you're gonna stir the pot. And that's exactly what happened. Look at what Rav Baruch Kaplan. There's an interview with him that was recorded, and it's been translated. You can find it online. He was a Talmud there in Hebron, and what he spoke about, how, until 29, until the Zionists came and started to instigate issues, the Jews and the Arabs lived in peace. So anyway, and there was a lot of shmad, even, really. People don't know that story. A lot of today's Palestinians and Jordanians and so forth are actually of Jewish extraction. And some of them actually secretly, like the Marranos of old, secretly keep Judaism. Although I would say they should still make Ger L'Chumrah if they want to come back. But I myself did such a Ger L'Chumrah on a boy from Jordan who then went on to sit and learn in yeshiva for I think 10 years or something, after that. Anyway, let's get back to the and actually DNA tests on the Palestinians show that they were Ashkenazi Jews, actually. Anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about. This whole story with the wall. I've been rambling on for 22 minutes already. I'm crazy. I should be learning Torah. I shouldn't be talking about nonsense. What's wrong with me? Anyway, we were talking about Misha Nichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. What does this have to do with that? So my answer to the women of the wall was essentially, you could look it up on my Twitter feed, at Rabbi Kolakowski. The Satmar Rebbe said that pious Jews should not be going to the Western Wall. And my answer is like, you know what? You Zionist idolaters, heretics, can have your wall, and you can have Israel. We have God. We Haredim, we have God. I mean, that's and these so-called Haredim who are making fights, they're making Chil Hashem. Because, you know what? If they want to daven at the Western Wall, which I also emotionally I feel that, but we have to recognize we're in Galus. I didn't say this in the tweet because there's only so much you can put in a tweet, but we have to recognize we're in Galus. The Zionists are foreigners. The Zionists are not our brothers. They are ruling the country the same way that the Turks did, or the British did, or any of the Malamukes, or the Crusaders. They are just the same. These are not our brethren in faith. These are foreign invaders. Just because they might happen to share bloodlines with us doesn't mean anything, because to us in Judaism it's not about bloodline, it's about faith. And these people, their faith is foreign to Torah. They're atheists, they're Marxists. The whole kibbutz system is Marxism. I mean, that's what I always want to call Dennis Prager and say to him, I don't understand. You say that you support liberalism and oppose leftism, but then you always say that liberals support Israel and leftists don't. But Israel's a leftist country. It's not a liberal. There's nothing liberal about Israel. They are trying. It's a big government country that's Marxist. That's the Kupat Cholim. They have socialized medicine. The kibbutzim is socialist communes. That's left wing. The whole Israel is a left wing country. Now there are right wing people who live there, but even what they call the Israeli right have a lot of big government ideas. But the religious right in Israel are the small government people, are the real libertarians who are the anti-Zionists, who don't want this big government Leviathan that they have in Israel. They want to just be left alone and live their lives, and live a good, pious life, and devotion to God, and that's it. All this being said, 25 minutes already. Wow. I just ramble on about nothing. So, I mean, when I say idolaters, well, that's what Professor Yeshayahu Lebovich said, who was an Israeli scholar. He was an Orthodox Jew, but his ideology was very different than a lot of the mainstream Orthodox theology. But he was a great thinker, even if we don't agree with everything he said. But Professor Leibowitz was, he said that the Western Wall is an idol. And the way that people approach the Western Wall and so forth is idolatrous. And he has a certain point to that. I don't 100% agree with it, but if it can lead to violence, or even hissing and yelling, meaning violence also can mean violent speech. Verbal violence, you want to call that. Violence is a chil Hashem, and for someone to think that this is something, there is a time for war and a time for peace. There's a time for anger. There's a time, but you have to know when is the time. And when it comes to something like this, when we are in Galus, we are in exile, even to take up verbal arms for the Western Wall, to me, seems to be somewhat idolatrous. It seems to be a lack of proper understanding of what's really important in life and in the world. And how does that relate to today's Tanya? So in today's Tanya, it says, it quotes the Gemara that says, "Mishecharev Beis Hamikdash, ein loy lakadosh baruch hu ba'olamai el daled amay shel halacha bilvad." Talmud tells us that since the temple was destroyed, God has nothing in His world except for the 4 cubits of the way, what we'll colloquially call the Jewish law. But I think about how the Native Americans often call their religious devotions the Great Path, and that there are all the conspiracy theories that perhaps the Native Americans have some Israelite roots. They might be from the lost tribes. I know the Mormons believe that, of course. But other people, I know Rabbi Bar Tzadok has been talking about that for years and been interested in studying about that. The fact that they call their way of life the Great Path, and we refer to our laws as halacha, which means it's related to walking, right? To going, the way to go, the path. But it's also, the Tanya explains there is the study of halacha. study of Jewish law. Even if one just, they don't have time all day to learn, but they learn a little bit in the morning and a little bit at night, and they rejoice in that they have devoted some time in their day to Torah study. Tanya says that should bring the greatest joy. And it's true, because when you think about what that means, and we have to temper that joy with humility. That's certainly the message that the Navi Malachi brings, and the prophet Malachi brings, that we shouldn't become arrogant simply because and it's connected to this story with the women of the wall. Because I have no control over the women of the wall. I don't give a damn about the women of the wall. I have no control over the Charei Shehid in Eretz Yisrael either. But I can at least, as a brother of theirs, and halachically, is there really anything that wrong with what the women of the wall are doing? You can find heterim for just about anything there. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's the way we do things in our communities. But, we're not the bosses. It's not ours. We're in Gullus. All right, a good always say they want to keep the status quo or something, but sometimes you can't. I mean, is it worth it to fight over these things? And we have to be worried in the other way, because that was the wisdom of Rav Shach when Begin said that he wanted to give support the yeshivas. And so Rav Shach Zichron L'Vracha asked, well, how much you want to give? And Menachem Begin said, everything. What do you mean? And then Rav Shach said, no. You want to, if you do that, even if you have good intentions, you're going to put us out of business. Because if you're nice to us, you're a guy, you wear a yarmulke, you put tefillin, all right. So we can work with you a little bit, right? Which maybe is a mistake, maybe yes, maybe no, but whatever it is. The guy puts on talis and tefillin every day, wears a yarmulke most of the time. But you like to quote things from the Bible, and but what about when the next elections come in, and we're going to be dependent on the government to run our yeshivas, and they're going to say, well, wait a second, you have to do this or that, or else we're going to take away your funding. And then they have no funding. And then what do? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So all right, they had to do something. They had to take a little bit. But now even a lot of the very pro-Israeli government Haredim realized it's not worth it. I know one Chassidish Rebbe who I'm close with was making chasna this week for Zainikel. Mazel tov to Shlafzer Rebbe. He says, his mismedrash doesn't take a penny from the government, but he does vote. So he's like in between. And ad kedei kach, the Shleimer Rav, he wants a nice quiet mikveh to go to. Erev Shabbos, he goes to Shidlovtza mikveh. Why? Because it's Altaras HaKodesh. They don't take a penny from the Tzionim. But still, the Rebbe votes. And when the Chassidim ask him, should they vote, should they not vote, you know what he says? What does your father do? That's a very smart idea. Very smart answer. What does your father do? If your father doesn't vote, don't vote. If your father does vote, vote. Don't copy me. What? Because I'm your Rebbe? That's silly. It's very smart. And that's what a good Rebbe should do. the story of the guy who went to dig under a bridge because he had a dream that there's a treasure on the bridge, and someone said, you know how stupid, there was a Gentile there, he said, you stupid Jew, if I did everything that I dreamt about, I had a dream that this Jew's house in this town, in this place, there's buried a treasure. And the guy was describing this Jew's house, and so he went home and he found the treasure. And the moral of the story, I think, this the Rebbe Binim from Shishcha, I was once by his kever in Shishcha. He said that this teaches us that what we're looking for is inside. Don't think you got to go to some Rebbe to get what you need. What a good Rebbe will do is show you what you already had inside of you. And so even in a superficial way, I mean, I know the Shidlovtzer Rebbe, he's more than that superficial aspect. He has that within himself as well. So, anyway, let's get back to what are we talking about. The joy that comes from learning Torah, that you're worthy to be from the few people in the world, out of 7 billion people in the world, even with all the Koreans who are learning Gemara, we can include them with us, but how many people are really learning Torah? Anyway, when the Koreans learn Gemara, it's just a book of like Jewish sayings and stuff, and with quotes from the Gemara, but then they also have other Jewish quotes. It's not that they're sitting, and actually learning Blat Gemara. They're reading, the equivalent of every man's Talmud, even if that, it's a book that a guy from Great Neck wrote, and he translated to Korean, and that's what they call the Korean Talmud. It's not what people think. But anyway, might have some of the shakla just to teach people how to think, whatever it is. But it's not the way you're gonna go and see in the Mir Yeshiva people sitting and learning. But anyway, the halavai, every Jew should hear that the Koreans, they're learning Gemara. Well, you should learn a Black Gemara. Sit down and learn. Shame dich nicht. So anyway, but again, like, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said he thought he could change the world, then he realized maybe he could change his country, he realized no, maybe he could change his community, no, maybe he could change his town, no, maybe he could change his family, no, maybe he could change himself. And he said that it's easier to finish Shas than to change one midah, one character trait. And I'll testify to that because I finished Shas. It's not that hard. Even a dummy like me could finish Shas, but to change one character trait, that's a big deal. So what are we talking about here? So what's the story with this joy? Because we have to think about, if it's not bringing you joy, there's an issue there. You hear what I'm saying? Meaning, if you're getting angry and yelling and shouting because these people are desecrating the Western Wall by reading the Torah because they're letting the women read the Torah at the Western Wall, don't forget about what their intentions are for a moment. Think about yourself. Because, maybe their intentions are not really so pure. Maybe it's politics. Do these people, they want to go to the wall and put on tefillin and lane. Do they put on tefillin every day? I'm saying the women. How many of them put on tefillin every day when they're all by themselves? Lahavdil alfei of dollars. I work. I'm the head chaplain in a prison. The other day was Ash Wednesday in the Catholic Church and a lot of the other Western churches. And so I listened to our deacon. The priest couldn't make it. He was busy that day, obviously. Just like I can't make it on Rosh Hashanah, you know. I mean, it's not quite the same. Maybe he could drive over and... you know what I'm talking about. I mean, theoretically, I could sleep there Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and I did that twice in another prison, Yom Kippur. 2 years in a row, I stayed near a prison, walked there, within walking distance of the prison, to daven with the Yidden in the prison, Yom Kippur. 2 years in a row in the federal prison in Virginia when I was a chaplain there. Anyway, put that aside. What were we talking about? So the deacon, they have their gospel reading, and it was, I guess it's the Sermon on the Mount, I'm not sure, but he was saying, don't be like those who want to show off when they're praying. When you're fasting, anoint your head with oil and look happy. No one should know you're fasting, and only God should know. Which is the same thing our Chazal say, that there was a woman who, her ear was pinned to the door of hell because she always used to brag about how she used to fast. Have a big smile on your face. No one should know you're fasting. And when you pray, don't be in front of everybody showing off that you're praying. Go hide in the closet. That's what Isa is alleged to have said. And he said, and those who are out in the street corners or out and they're praying, they already received their reward. It's a good word, I mean, whatever he said, he took really a lot of things from Chazal. He wasn't, just because they made a Avodah Zarah out of this guy, he was wrong in a lot of things, and there were problems with him. But it doesn't mean everything he says you have to throw out the window. We say the same things. It happened to be this week. I heard this, and the deacon was kind of laughing. He said, I don't get it. Here we are. We read this, and then I go put ashes on your head to show that you're mourning and fasting or whatever. So so which is it? But the answer is, you can do these things in public, but you have to have it inside too, right? And it's the same thing that we're talking about here. The women of the wall. What exactly, how pious are these women in their beliefs and in their approach? How pious are they really? All right, but that's their politics. That's none of our business. Let their rabbis give them mussar. It's not my job. But I can give mussar to the Charedesh Eden because I wear a bekasher and a hat and I have a beard and payas, right? I tried to be a conservative rabbi. I couldn't get the job. I had one place for a few, not a real conservative shul, independent shul. But, I had a job for one less than a year, and the shul closed down, whatever it was. I went on 2 interviews. One, they just hired somebody else yesterday. It wasn't too far away. It would have been nice. I don't know if I would have wanted to do it every week, and that's what they wanted. So I'm happy I didn't get the job. Another one in Brooklyn, I don't know if they even filled the position. And the Rav from the Shtibel across the street said it would be very good if you got the job. But as far as I know, they haven't hired anybody. That's their business. Baruch Hashem, I have a good job. And I have this medrash that I have to worry about that that I'm a member of. That I'm assistant rabbi. So anyway, the Cheredes She'idin, though, why are you getting worked up over this? Get worked up over a Shver Rambam. Go sit and learn. Don't waste time with this nonsense. You want to daven by the Kaisel, daven by the Kaisel. It's none of your business what the foreigners do. Who are, unfortunately we're living in Gullus under these foreign-minded people who are not our brothers and sisters, even if they call themselves Jews. That's a more peaceful way. If you just have a disconnect and not care what they do, just care what you do, like Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said. Think about, and not to be arrogant over them, because they might be ignorant. And the thing is, like Malachi said, even the idolaters are bringing a pure offering to God. Don't think you're hot stuff just because you're a kohen in the Beis Hamikdash. Don't let that make you arrogant. The Navi says, the prophet Malachi says, because from the rising of the sun to the setting thereof, great is my name among the nations, says the Lord of hosts. Everywhere where they're offering, it's all to my name. It doesn't matter the Christians or the Muslims or the Buddhists or the Hindus or whoever they are. And everybody hates the Jews, but on National Brotherhood Week, right? That's Tom Lehrer. He should be well. But anyway, all right, laws up. They don't know any better, and they are offering a pure offering that God accepts. It's a mincha tahara, when the Native Americans are smoking their peace pipe to the Creator. They don't know any better, and it's a mincha tahara. It's a pure offering. Says that's in the Bible. That's in our Tanakh, in our Navi says that, right? But the so the same thing, the Reform, the Conservative, if they're ignorant, they just don't know any better. It's a mincha tahora. Buzz up. If Jews are going into a synagogue listening to Kriyas Torah, even if they're sitting together, they don't know any better. It's not the end of the world. Think about yourself. Worry about yourself. Don't worry about them. And that's the message that I have in this with this story. Worry about yourself. Don't go worrying about what they do at the wall, and find simcha in your daled amos of halacha. That's what's really important. Not you want to go daven somewhere. Do you get upset when you go to Hebron if you daven there, that the Muslims are davening there and doing something different than you do? No, of course not. Because we're in Gullus. The same thing. We're in Gullus under these people too. Leave them alone. Let them do their thing. We're in Gullus. Look at them like you look at the Muslims. And so if they want to lane, let them do it. That's my feeling. There are more important things to worry about. And the thing is, like the Tanya specifically started, that once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there's nothing but the Daled Amos of Halacha. Meaning, forget about the Beis Hamikdash. You want to care about the Beis Hamikdash? Say Korbanos before you daven Shachris and before you daven Mincha. That'll be your connection to the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash Shalmala, that's what's important. Like the Zayda, the Chavis Yor, he says, if you don't know which way is Yerushalayim, there are two different opinions. One is you should point your heart to Yerushalayim, but then the Gemaras, they also say you're supposed to point your heart to heaven when you daven. So which is it? Should you point your heart to Yerushalayim or to heaven? And the answer is to Yerushalayim that's in heaven, the Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem, Yerushalayim Shalmala. That's what's important. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Go into your Daled Amos of Halacha, and then you'll be in the Yerushalayim Shalmala. That's what's important. Doesn't matter where you live in the world. We can have God. We don't need to turn the Temple Mount or the Western Wall into an idol. That's only going to lead to violence and shvichas damim. The true way of peace and joy is in the Daled Amos of Halacha. Learn some Mishnayos, learn Gemara, learn Shulchan Aruch, Rambam, Tanakh, Musar, Chassidus, Kabbalah. Learn some Torah. You'll be matzliach. You'll be happy, and that's what it means. Misha nichnas Adar marbim b'simcha. That the joy of Adar is the joy of Torah. Kimu mashe kiblu kvar. Have a good day. Good Shabbos.